Hey YouTube, my name's Eric and welcome to Wolfgang Designs. I've been wanting to share my creative process for a while, and I figured there's no better time than now. If you enjoy woodworking, design, and a little chaos in the shop, you're in the right place. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. For this first project, I wanted to start simple. I've been making these mosaic wood art pieces for a while now, and I thought it'd be fun to bring one to life on camera. Almost all of my art pieces are inspired by places I've traveled. I love visiting fun, beautiful, sometimes exotic places, then trying to capture a bit of that story in a wood mosaic. And like every good story, each one needs a beginning. This one starts simple, with a single 1/4-inch sheet of birch plywood. It's my go-to wood for projects like this. It's neutral in color, has a beautiful grain, and it takes stain nice and evenly. For this piece, I went with some good old Home Depot birch ply. Not the fanciest, but it gets the job done. After cutting a few sheets down to size, I was ready to fire up the laser. Around this point, I usually get distracted by the random little toys scattered around my shop. They've kind of become part of the process, a reminder not to take any of this too seriously. For instance, I genuinely believe that you could fix all of the world's problems with super glue and duct tape. Maybe just mine. Anyway, I decided not to show the full design process in this video. I'll save that for future riveting content. So with the file loaded up, all that's left is to sit back and enjoy the obligatory laser cutting time-lapse. Because what's a YouTube build video without one? I've had this machine for about 5 years now, and honestly, it's a tank. I'm sure there's fancier lasers coming out all the time, but until this thing craps out, I'm happy. And no, before you ask, this isn't a sponsored video because I'm currently a nobody. But hey Glowforge, once I hit 5 followers, reach out and let's talk. Here's a trick I use for sanding a mosaic piece like this. I like to keep the sheet that everything was cut out of and restack all the pieces inside. It helps keep everything nice and safe. Nice and safe. Also, if you don't have a vacuum port built into your workbench, please do yourself a favor and add one. It'll change the way you work. Mine's hooked up to a simple shop vac with a pre-filter, and it makes sanding and cleanup an absolute breeze. So, it turns out I missed a step in my technique to keep things nice and safe. Since the pieces were allowed to float freely around during sanding, one of the corners got snagged and ripped off the birch veneer. Oh well, once again, glue to the rescue. A little 220 grit and some finesse, and nobody will ever know. Well, except my 5 subscribers. This time around, I decided to do things properly, flip everything over, and tape all the pieces in place with some blue masking tape. This should keep everything nice and... You know what? Never mind. With the sanding speed turned down, I hit everything with 220 grit. The burn marks actually make for a great indicator of where I've already sanded. When I'm working with thin veneer wood like this, I try not to put too much pressure on the palm area. That way I don't dig in too deep and sand past the veneer. After 220, I like to hand sand with 320 grit to get that final smooth finish. This art piece was a little too big to fit in my laser, so I had to break it up into a few chunks. This is the lower half of the piece, the part that represents the ground, grass, and rivers. Clearly, I'm a master of abstract form because, you know, rectangles. I made sure to learn from my previous mistake and taped everything down right off the bat. I'm pretty sure sandpaper is helpful when trying to, I don't know, sand something. Luckily, my boy Ego has my back. I'm using that no-pressure sanding method again. I can't stress enough how annoying it is to sand through the veneer, especially halfway through the project. And once again, just following up the 220 with some 320 grit hand sanding. Okay, so cutting and prep is done. Now I need to lay out the final build and create a frame. So I go ahead and join the 2 halves together to make the mocking up easier. After perusing through my hardwood pile, I settled on this beautiful piece of cherry. I feel like there's a point in every build where you kind of just go off script. Maybe you had all the previous things perfectly planned out, but you arrive at a point where whatever's happening in the real world just doesn't seem to vibe with what's in your plans. For me, this is that exact moment. I'm basically just free-forming from this point forward, trying to listen to what this piece is telling me. And what I think it's telling me is give me a simple squared off 3/4 inch cherry border. With this piece ripped, now all I need to do is cut it in half. That will give me plenty material to start making all the sides of the frame. Long strip cuts are some of my absolute least favorite cuts. They're messy and honestly scare the crap out of me. This first measurement and cut is the most important. The frame's going to be a hexagon with 30-degree mitered cuts. Every piece after this one will be built consecutively off the last angle to make sure everything fits together perfectly. I'm constantly testing the fit of each piece off camera. I can't tell you how many batch cut parts I've ruined by trusting the measurements from my plans and cutting them all exactly the same. Wood is imperfect, and so am I. So I counteract that by fitting each piece to the one before it, rather than relying on perfectly drawn up plans. It almost always results in a better fit and finish. I went ahead and designed this back piece off camera. I needed something sturdy for the artwork to glue to, as well as a solid base for the frame to mount. Once again, it was just a bit too big for my laser, so I had to split it into 2 sections. I was just about to do another layout when Paisley wandered over to say hi. Honestly, I couldn't ask for a better shop assistant. She keeps morale high and quality control strict. Naturally, I had to stop everything I was doing and give her some love. We really don't deserve dogs. They're far too good for this world. With Paisley happy, I got back to work. I set up the router with a 3/4 inch flat bit to carve a channel along the inside edge of each frame piece. Once assembled, this would create a recessed area for the backing to sit flush. Here you can see I'm using that backplate to set the depth of my recessed channel. When I'm routing a recess like this, I always add just a little extra depth to make sure the backing doesn't sit proud at all. After double checking all my depths, I went ahead and made a test cut on a scrap piece. If you're someone who doesn't need to make test cuts first, then you, my friend, are a better man than I. As a general rule, I like to start shallow and slowly creep up on the final depth. That approach has saved me more times than I can count. I just keep going incrementally until I get that perfect fit. Earlier, I went through and marked all my pieces. I needed to designate which side was the back and which corners paired together. To keep it all organized, I developed a super elaborate, highly complex mathematical coding system. I numbered them. When it comes to repetitive tasks like this, I really wish that I could work this fast. Nothing makes me happier than perfectly fitted pieces and a project going exactly to plan. And nothing gets you guys more stoked than watching some zoomed in slow motion sweeping glamour shots. So here's a few to please the crowd. To join everything, I went with simple super glue and a few brad nails. Nothing about this piece is structural. It's not furniture. I just need the corners to stay together, and this method is quick, clean, and efficient. To attach the backing, I did the same thing. A few beads of Gorilla Glue followed by some short 18-gauge brads. I just had to make sure to shoot them in at a slight angle so they wouldn't punch through the front. Now that the frame's done, it's time to move on to my most favorite thing in the whole wide world: filling and sanding. I love it so much. It's definitely not monotonous, boring, or soul-crushing in any way. Lately, I've been trying this new thing where I lie to myself until it becomes my reality. It's a work in progress. As far as sanding jobs go, this one wasn't too bad. I mostly just needed to knock down the edges with 220, then followed up with 320 for the finish. Okay, now we're finally to my favorite part. I don't know why, but staining has always been extremely satisfying to me. I think it's because it's the first moment where you really start to see what the final piece is going to become. Remember how I was talking about going off script earlier? Well, this is about as off script as a script can possibly be. Similar to how I build my mitered corners, every next choice is influenced by what I did before. My process is simple. I pop open a can, wipe on some stain, and just see where it takes me. And before I know it, I've got a beautifully contrasted array of rich, warm tones. Or I've got a really ugly paperweight. Either way, I made something that didn't exist before, and honestly, that's my favorite part. Okay, so if you've made it this far in the video and tolerated all my rambling, congrats. I love you more than Paisley. Yeah, no chance. But seriously, I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of times I've heard people in videos say things like, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. And now I finally get the honor of saying the same thing to you. So please, if you actually enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, then go ahead and hit that little button with the thumb on it and maybe follow my profile? That's not right. Oh well, we'll figure it out. In an attempt to capture a wider audience, I'm going to do what every serious YouTuber eventually does, lean into the ASMR vibes. So for the next 30 seconds, no talking. Just pure, unfiltered woodworking. The soft, soothing sounds of tongue oil being wiped onto wood. All right, really in the home stretch now. Here I'm just adding a simple hanger. Nothing fancy, just a small brass one like you'd find on a picture frame. I just make sure it's centered and secure. No one wants to hear their artwork hit the floor at 2 a.m. I also always make a point to sign and date each of my art pieces, just in case anyone ever forgets that I, Eric Wolfgang, made this. And there you have it, a completed wood mosaic art piece made by yours truly. I decided to mount this one in my dining room to help fill out that corner. I love how the stain colors pull out and complement the warmth of my barn door. That's actually a project I really wish I'd filmed. If you guys want to see something like that, maybe a full start to finish barn door build, let me know in the comments. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm so excited to finally start my YouTube journey and see where this goes. I've got plenty more process videos coming soon, but for now, thanks for watching.